Welcome to Built to Work, the podcast that gets its hands dirty, dives into the grit, and uncovers the heart of what makes the blue-collar world tick. I'm Colin, your host, and I'm sitting down with the people who keep our world running. From those tackling the tough jobs no one else dares to do, to the HR professionals working overtime to find the labor force we desperately need. Whether you're in the trenches or behind the scenes, this podcast is for anyone who values hard work, determination, and stories that build the backbone of our workforce. So grab your gloves, your coffee, or your clipboard. It's time to get to work. Welcome to another Built to Work podcast. I'm here with Tim Ridderbos. Tim, thank you so much for being here with me to chat.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you. I was able to swing by your guys' office a couple weeks ago. We got to spend some time together, learn more about you guys, learn more about you. And I was like, hey, this Tim guy, he's a cool guy. I need to talk to some more. So Tim, you are with Circular by Shapiro, and your role, you said, was the VP or VP, just vice president.
Yeah, vice president of Circular Business Development. So we're a 121-year-old company. We started back in 1904. So if you think about that, we're headquartered in St. Louis. So the World's Fair was going on. So back when this company started, they were introducing the ice cream cone, the X-ray, and the Palace of Electricity, which was basically a building with lights. So that's basically the time period in which the company got its start. And we really focus on recycling and sustainability and circularity programs for large industrial manufacturers.
Okay. So what does like a circularity program look like when you say that? I mean, I can kind of get an idea that it's going to be around recycling and reusing, but what do you guys define that as?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, right, it's how do you keep material in the economy for as long as possible in its highest and best use as possible.
Okay.
So a lot of what I've done is really think about things maybe in a different way than we've thought about them before, and along with the whole team at Shapiro, of course. But really, as we go to our customers and we try and expand our offerings to them, we're really looking at how do we almost dumpster dive, right? And look at what's going in their trash. What are they throwing away? And is there something better that they could be doing with those things, right? So obviously in our industry, we focus very heavily on recycling, but we do a lot of business cases too, to basically say, hey, look, you're paying X amount of tons, dollars per ton to landfill this. You're paying X amount for every pickup. But this cardboard, this wire, this plastic actually has marketable value. So how do we actually turn that into a revenue stream for you? And so we do a lot of those programs as well. We've also got our Master Alloys division, which takes in scrap metal, and creates ingot with certified chemistries, so that our customers that we sell all that off to don't have to buy base materials and put it into their furnaces, right? We're trying to give them a pre-packaged unit with material for them to use for whatever they're making.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and as I was learning more about your guys' company, you guys have quite a few locations in various parts of the country, and your different locations kind of do some, perform different operations. Can you give me like a brief rundown on what you guys do in your different locations? Because it's pretty diverse.
Yeah. So we've got 9 facilities. It doesn't look like your traditional scrapyard. We're really more like a recycling center where everything is under roof. We do have one steel yard still, but everything else is under roof. More like a warehouse. We're really focused on non-ferrous, but in addition to metal, you're going to see plastics in our facility. You're going to see cardboard in our facility. Actually, one of our facilities has a breakdown line for one of our large customers that we deal with on a national level. So we're actually taking in their whole units. We're breaking them down for them. So we're providing some additional services too, in addition to just the general recycling. I guess in addition to that, one of the things that's been good for us over the past few years is because we deal with industrial manufacturers, we're thinking about supply chain and the flow of material in a different way. So we have really spent a lot of time trying to build partnerships with other recycling companies across the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So if I'm dealing with an industrial manufacturer and they say, hey, we've got a facility out in Timbuktu, hopefully I've got a friend out there that can help, with whatever material that they've got. help them process that and keep it out of the landfill. And then lastly, we've got an innovation center down in Seymour, Missouri, which is near Springfield, Branson area. And that's where we do some R&D on some of the unique products that we offer to our customers.
Okay, awesome. I need to get you in touch with the guys at Missouri S&T. Have you been in touch with them at all?
No, tell me more.
Okay, so Missouri University of Science and Technology, it's pretty much halfway between St. Louis and Springfield. That's where I went to school. They're building an advanced materials lab. It's all engineers. It's like 95% engineers, 5,000 students. But they're starting to work with manufacturing companies looking at advanced manufacturing techniques with some materials. So maybe your R&D lab could tie in with them. They're investing millions of dollars into some new facilities. They're getting all sorts of equipment. I actually spoke on another podcast with Dr. Richard Billow that's kind of heading up that department. For them, they're building this big thing they're calling the Protoplex, like advanced manufacturing, like additive manufacturing, basically, and I don't know, like microscopic laser welding. They're working a lot with Springfield Remanufacturing Group down there, SRG Holdings, on cracked blocks. Like, how can they laser weld in, like, to repair cracked blocks? Lots of stuff that's like really stuff that I'd never, I haven't heard of. I'm not in advanced manufacturing, but stuff that's like really only being done at the high levels of like military grade, that sort of stuff.
That's really cool. I mean, and I think that's where it's all going, right? I mean, I think the rate of change and technology and innovation is happening so much faster today that, I think a lot of the things that we just take for granted in the manufacturing space. I mean, it's something that we think about, at Shapiro. It's like, man, we assume it's going to continue being like this. We assume that they're, I mean, for example, right, we love aerospace. That's a big customer base for us. But, I mean, if you take a 300-pound ingot and you put it in a CNC machine and you end up with 95% scrap rate, like, is that the way that they're going to be manufacturing those pieces in another 20 years, right? I mean, you see the advent of a ton of 3D printing and other stuff. I mean, it's it's really interesting just to see how things change. In fact, I've got some friends and family that work, at one of the big aerospace manufacturers. And, during COVID, everything kind of shut down in that space. But the one department that was getting blank checks throughout that entire time was, the department that was researching 3D printing of parts, right? I mean, so I would love an introduction to your contacts there and see this advanced manufacturing facility. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah. So that 3D printing is what they were calling additive manufacturing instead of, very exact, very small, printing 3D, I don't know what they're printing, but super accurate. And then to your point, there's a whole lot less waste, which kind of hurts the scrap industry a little bit, but the world's changing sometimes, but thankfully.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it, right? Like you can, I think with a lot of this, bury your head in the sand or say, oh, it's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen for another decade or two. But, I think there are going to be some things that change, right? And we need to be, out ahead of it. I mean, shoot, I've got a good guy for you to talk to at some point is a gentleman named Anthony Butchbaker from Spartan Scanning Solutions. Do you know him?
I don't know him, no.
Okay. So I'll put you guys in touch. He's building now, the system that does digital twins, right? So he'll take a drone and he'll fly it all around your shredder or your recycling facility. Look way high on different pieces, your stacks, your catwalks, everything. He'll have very, very detailed 3D renderings, a digital twin of your facility, and it's so accurate that he could basically fly this drone through your place. And the drone using AI will sense, different parts that might be unsafe. So if you've got a handrail that's bent, or if you've got like, something that's a plate that's missing bolts, this system is actually accurate enough to fly around, see that this is missing bolts, or that's bent, or that this safety piece is not in a place where it should be. And it'll ping you and tell you, hey, here's the 37 different places all around your plant that could use some attention from a safety perspective, and do that all via drone without having you send your safety guy up in a harness and looking at all this stuff, and probably do it with more accuracy and obviously just a ton more speed. So, I mean, as we think about this industry as a whole, like, yeah, I mean, things are changing quick, and the way we've done things, for the last 100 years is not going to look like the next 100, and probably not going to look like the next 10.
Yeah, it's changing rapidly. So
Mhm.
there's a lot. The whole labor landscape is changing too, which is where I play quite a bit. And okay, well, some of these jobs we were doing, AI may be taking those, right? Some robotic picking or something like that. But on the flip side, there's more people are focusing on desk jobs, inside jobs, white collar jobs that there's even more demand now for people that we can fill. Just, hey, you guys need some laborers, you guys need some operators, somebody that's experienced like that. And it's amazing to see how it's all changing, and it's moving. Everything's moving, and it's moving faster and differently than it has in the past.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and so you're saying that you're seeing less, you anticipate less demand for pickers and that sort of thing, and you're seeing more moving actually towards the white collar jobs.
I'm seeing, yeah. So you see more people that don't want to do these hard, these dirty jobs,
Hmm.
and so yeah, you're seeing a reduction in the pickers, right? Because okay, they can make all these different sorting machines and every eddy currents and everything like that, and robotic pickers, especially when it comes to like MRF facilities. A lot of
Yeah.
those have made really big investments and eliminated the picking lines completely. There's still a lot of picking lines, obviously, after shredders, but what we're seeing is okay, there's a reduction in pickers, but we're seeing an increased demand in semi-skilled positions that are having a really hard time filling, like operators, for instance, right? Material handler operators or
Yeah.
maintenance, because nobody wants to do those jobs because everybody wants to go to college right now, or they're looking for more of like a trade job where they can go get certified. Like, hey, a lot of people are going into HVAC because there's a big need for that. So from the labor standpoint, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a reduction over here, but every person I talk to is needing these same 2 to 3 positions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can
Well,
we
and I think that's
transition?
that's like the opportunity, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I could go back and, talk to 17-year-old Tim and be like, hey, do you want to go to college for 4 years, or do you want to, like, I was a carpenter, right? Like all through high
Okay.
school and college, every summer, I was swinging hammers in St. Louis, building houses, doing renovations, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, and I've still got friends that are in the industry, and it's like people who have skills, right? Who know how to build or fix a AC unit on the side of your house, or, do plumbing or electric or anything else. And I mean, certainly, the material handler, the machine operators,
Yeah.
like all those people, it's like there is going to be so much opportunity for somebody who knows how to swing a hammer or run a machine or fix the AC unit, in the future. Because I think for the longest time in this country, we were, you know, trying to steer people away from all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I think some of
Well,
the people that I know who are incredibly successful now, have, you know, HVAC businesses, they're doing construction. I mean, my construction friends, you can't, for the longest time, if you wanted them to do a job for you, like, sorry, you're out, 18 months, right?
yeah.
They're completely booked out. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, and especially in this industry, right? Like, we've got to continue to let people know that there's those kinds of jobs, that there's an incredible amount of security in those types of jobs, and that, we are going to have opportunities for people who want to, get their hands dirty, so to speak. Like, I love that stuff,
Yeah.
and it's a good place to build a career like that.
No, there's so many opportunities out there for
Mhm.
people like that. So
Yeah.
looking at this industry, it's the recycling, the scrap industry. It's a super unique industry. Obviously, when we were coming up through high school, they were like, "No, go to college, go to college." We didn't hear about this. It was dirty. It was kind of pushed to the side, or there was some bad, um, just stigmas around it. So,
Mhm.
how did you get into this industry?
Yeah, I would have never thought I'd be in this industry in high school or college. I got out of school, I got into finance. I didn't really like finance, but I liked the movies like Wall Street and Boiler Room. So I was like, well, this
Yeah.
could be fun, right? Did it for a couple years, but it wasn't tangible enough for me. I just, it's like, okay, great. You've got this insurance or you got this investment, and you're going to like it eventually someday. There wasn't, anything that I could really see out of it. And at the end of the day, you're not, and this is just me personally, like, I wanted to, like, actually create something, do something with my hands, right? Because I was
Mhm.
carpenter all through high school, like I said. So
Yeah.
I ended up cold calling the local Caterpillar dealership for like 6 months straight, and just I drove by them every day on the way to work, and I hey, just let me sell equipment. Let me run around in big tractors and talk to people and drive a truck and wear jeans and, do that. So eventually I bugged them enough that they let me in, and I had an incredible job as a territory manager selling Caterpillar equipment all around St. Louis. Sold it to construction companies and landscapers, all kinds of people. And one of my customers was Shapiro Metals.
Okay.
And so through the process, I swapped all their equipment from Bobcat over to Caterpillar. So skid steers at all the plants. And then one day, and they were incredibly friendly. Every time you go to the corporate office, I talked to Bruce Shapiro. I talked to Rick Dobkin, who, always had these screens and charts and the markets were going up and down for metal. And I was like, oh, tell me about that. And he'd always share it with me. And then Bob Alvarez came in as the president there. And, he just had a warmth about him, and he was always very friendly. So we'd spend some time together. He was one of those guys that you could obviously tell wants to invest in others. And so we signed a deal for a few more machines, and he tapped me on the shoulder as I was leaving the office, and he said, hey, come on back and we'll talk. And so the rest was history. So I got recruited by Shapiro, and it wasn't really anything like I had thought, right? I mean, the industry's got that Sanford and Sons, just scrapyard. It's always the bad guy in the movie that you got to get rid of a body or get rid of somebody, right? Well, obviously you go down to the scrapyard, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. You got a couple pit bulls guarding it, right?
That's it, right? And so and you don't really think about how that plays an important role in our economy. And so, so I jumped in with both feet. I was got very lucky. The head sales guy left about a week after I got in. And so they said, hey, Tim, I want you to go see this customer, this customer. And I became the director of national accounts. So I took care of our multi-location customers and did that all across, US, Canada, and Mexico. And it was just a lot of fun. Like I loved being able to go, like I'm a kid that grew up watching how it's made in mega factories. So this was like the perfect job. Like I got to go into a factory where they're building cars or where they built the engine block for my wife's car. I get to see where they're making rockets and airplanes, and this part goes on, a Black Hawk helicopter, right? Like that's really cool. And so I loved it, and I've been at it ever since. So about 8 years now in the industry.
Awesome. All right. So very winding route to get into the industry,
Yes.
not a direct line.
Nope. But now it's got its hooks in me. So I'm stuck. I love it.
Don't want to leave it.
No.
So as you look forward in your career and what's coming within the industry, obviously you guys are working with your circular program, circular brand. What are your goals when you're looking forward? It's like, what are you guys, I know what the company's goals is and quite they're trying to achieve, but what are you trying to achieve?
I've been playing in the space of storytelling the last couple of years.
Okay.
Working with different people to try and tell the stories of this industry and tell the stories of sustainability and tell the stories of recycled materials. And that's been an absolute ton of fun. It's, I think this industry is in this interesting spot where for the longest time it, stayed in the shadows, right? And whether that's from a technological standpoint for people who are into tech and introducing tech now to this industry at a really high level, I think there's a huge opportunity there. And I think there's also this huge opportunity to storytell for brands, for manufacturers, for the companies in our industry that make it possible for the economy to function. And I think, also this industry has been doing all the stuff we hear about today that everyone's trying to get in on before it was cool, right? This is the original sustainable business. This is the original business that's helping make the planet better together. This is the original business that's cleaning the oceans and, saving the polar bears, whatever you want to say, right?
Yeah.
And so now I think we've got this really important opportunity to grab the narrative, to make it our own, and to show how this industry really is a critical piece of our economy. I was at a conference last fall put on by Jim Keefe, Recycling Today. It's called the Corporate Growth Conference. And basically the whole point of this conference is to look at how this industry is changing from an investment standpoint and the number of investments, the amount of money that's flowing into this industry because it's being seen as critical infrastructure is really just going through the roof at this point. And so I guess that's a long drawn out story to basically say, in my career and what I see for the future is helping shine a light on the cool people, the cool companies, like you mentioned, advanced manufacturing, like who are the people that are doing really interesting and incredible things that at the end of the day, like help us all, because everything that you have in your house, everything that you could touch, the car that you're driving, like it's all impacted by this. And that's great. Like you and I talk, recycling, it's great. Or, maybe I like Michael Goldstein posts, maybe he likes one of mine, that's great. Right. At the same time, like, how do we get that beyond, other recyclers, other scrappers, other recycled materials professionals, right? Like, how do you get that message further down the line so that, my daughter just grows up knowing, why it's good to, not throw a can in the landfill, but make sure that we try and keep the $1.6 billion worth of aluminum from cans, out of the landfill, right? And why is that important? Why is that important for the economy and for nature, right? I'm a big, I guess I'll also say too, like I'm a huge outdoorsman, right? My motivation for this is because I want clean air. I want clean water. I want to go fishing and have there be trout in the water. I want to go hunting and I want there to be elk on top of the mountains in Colorado. I want my daughter and her kids to be able to enjoy the same beautiful nature that I've been able to. And so, I think as we think about where this industry fits in the economy, we really are the forefront of trying to make sure that we keep the resources that we've been blessed with here as good and as clean and as pure as possible.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put that. I mean, all that's awesome. And I love the aspect of storytelling and that needs to be talked about more for what we do in this industry, in the scrap and the recycled materials industry, but more specifically, I think on the scrap side, because when we started growing up, recycling kind of became a thing, right? Everybody got their first recycling bin, and hey, recycle your cans, recycle your Coke bottles or whatever they are. But as I've gotten into more and more scrap yards, and the more I see, they've been doing it for forever, and they've been doing it with some of the really big producers of waste, like the industrial customers, the industrial clients that you guys will serve, where every month they're shipping tons and tons and tons of stampings or millings or whatever, skeleton plate that then needs to be processed. When you get a call from a farmer or a contractor and they've got 50 pieces of heavy equipment that need to be torched up so they can be recycled instead of just rusting away in the field.
Yep.
I feel like they generate so much that it's like, okay, well, they took it to the scrapyard. They don't see that as recycling. They see it as, okay, well, you're getting money for it, as opposed to having to take the can to the curb every, on trash and recycling day. It's so much of that was surprising to me, how much the industrial customers generate.
That's cool about it.
And they've been doing it for forever. It's not like, they're not the ones getting the cool posters and stuff like that. They've been doing it for forever because, I mean, honestly, there's a monetary incentive to do it. But they're generating so much more recyclable materials, right? And all the crushed cars too. So it's just amazing.
And you can take that so many different ways. Like on the one hand, right, from the storytelling aspect, like, and again, like I loved mega factories and how it's made and everything else growing up. Like you've got fire, melted metal, you've got crushers and shredders and big machines. And, I mean, it's exciting and it's raw and it's cool to watch a school bus go down the throat of a shredder, right? Like how cool is that? Like that's
the coolest.
Awesome. So you've got these incredible stories and then say, hey, it gets made into this. Like, the first story that I did kind of semi-professionally, and I say semi-professionally because there was no money in it, but we had a lot of fun, was last summer when me and my film crew visited a company here in St. Louis that takes plastic, right, that otherwise doesn't have a place to go, and they recycle it into railroad ties. So instead of cutting down a tree
Yeah.
and soaking it in toxic creosote. They take in all kinds of plastic, from car seat take back programs to what Murphs are able to collect, to all kinds of stuff. We're selling them stuff now that you probably have in your shop, right? Once it reaches the end of life, like we're selling some of that stuff to him, and he makes railroad ties out of it all, so you don't have to
That's so
chop down the
cool.
trees. It's like this incredible story that has a business case that's economically viable, because you got to have your sustainability story and have something that makes sense from a
Yeah.
financial aspect. Otherwise, it's just subsidy, and that's not going to work long term, right?
Yeah.
And that's super exciting to be able to tell a really neat story like that.
So, like I was saying, this part of the scrap industry, my first experience in it, since I've only been in it for a couple of years. So this metal right here behind me, right? So I had an old barn on my property. We demoed it. We built a new one, but I ended up with a ton of scrap metal out of that barn, as well as some from the other barn that we built because they sent us too much. And so I went into a scrapyard for the first time as a customer when I did that, and that was just a whole new experience. But for me, that was kind of eye opening going as a customer. It's like how does this work, right?
Yeah.
And there's people that are out there, and that's their whole thing, right? They're going out and they're collecting refrigerators, washing machines, stuff off the curb, just scrapping stuff out to help this economy keep going. But I got these barn panels here behind me, but what will they become at some point once they get recycled?
Yeah. Well, and like that's an interesting way that you describe that, right? Because you're a tough guy, right? You've got a farm, you got a business, you're tearing down barns, you're building barns, and it's different to go to a scrap yard for the first time, right? It
Yeah,
might be a little intimidating. Well, what if you're somebody who's got no skills like that, and just lives in a completely different world, and maybe you got your
yeah,
little kid's old bike that is beyond repair and it needs to go somewhere, right? Like I think that's a big thing that we need to think about too in this industry, is what face are we putting on for people who have material that we would like to buy that's really good for us and probably don't care much about pricing.
yeah,
How do we make it more accessible to more people? In fact, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to say the name, because this place is in Copenhagen, but there is a new waste to energy facility, right? Taking trash, burn it, turn it into energy.
yeah.
That's been built there, that literally, if you saw a picture of it, you would never guess that it's a waste to energy facility. In fact, it's got a ski slope that's been built on top of it. It's got a greenway for walking
Nice.
paths over top of it. The entire top of it's covered in green. The outside's got a really beautiful kind of architecture finish to it. And it's like, this thing looks like a piece of modern art, something that's been designed very beautifully within the city of Copenhagen. But it's a waste energy facility. And
Yeah,
how do we, again, as we move into the future, present ourselves as an industry, to the millions of people out there that we would like to be bringing us material
yeah.
as an industry, right? In a way that is just more accessible and easier to digest for somebody who's maybe not used to a big scrapyard, right? Other than what they see in Breaking Bad, So
Yeah, the one that pops into my mind is probably, I don't know, one of the like the Transformer movies or something like that, right? They're all just like lounging on old cars and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But I think about it. I do. I go into the scrapyard, right? This one that's down the street from me, and down the street in country is relative terms, like 20 minutes away. But the closest one to me, and you go in, and it's dusty and it's gravel, and you go across the scale, and there's heavy equipment, and there's piles of metal, and it's not the best customer facing side. I mean, for the regulars, it's no big deal, but
right.
I wasn't worried. I was like, hey, now that we're in this industry, it sounded like I took my son with me, right? No big deal. Like, we sat in the bed of the pickup truck, watched him, take the grapple and clean everything up out of the trailer, and it was a really cool experience, right? I was like, okay, here's how we get paid for it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but man, if I had an unlimited budget and some space to build a customer, quote, customer friendly, scrapyard, and right in the outskirts of the suburbs or something like that, concrete everywhere, nice experience. That would be, that'd be a really cool opportunity to kind of change the face and how people interact with that.
Well, the interesting thing is too, the market is developing kind of that middle interface. There's a company called Resin that is just dropping their first two collection units, and it's basically like a shipping container
Uh huh.
that's got solar panels. It runs off the sun, and it works based on an app on your phone. So you have to be
Okay.
a certified user, and they could set it at your neighborhood pool, or at your work or at your school, and you can basically put in, and this one's specifically for collecting either PET bottles or aluminum cans, but you can put them into the chute. Basically, it'll take a picture of it to make sure that it's actually what you say it is. It'll give you a credit based on the image that's been scanned, and then shred it up, and it goes into a trailer, right, to be removed from there. But basically, then you get a point system within this app, that you're either tracking points that convert into dollars for yourself, or it could, if you want to be more of a philanthropist, you could donate it to a local charity or whatever. But so it's interesting too to see some of this technology being implemented in different ways to make that experience a little easier, and a little more decentralized than an actual scrapyard too. So it's the market's coming up with some interesting things to help motivate motivate some of that collection.
Yeah. You could drop one of those in a suburb and people wouldn't really think about it too much, right? You kind of like, Ripple Glass has done a great job, right? They'll put up their big containers and they look all pretty and stuff like that. Nobody thinks about it when it's in the grocery store parking lot. As opposed to, big old, baler with a grapple on it, something like that. People kind of shy away from that.
Yeah. So, my neighborhood, we don't have cardboard recycling. And so every Friday is trash day, and every trash can is just filled up with Amazon boxes. It's like, man, there's part of me that just, if I got a little baler in my garage and just bring it over here, I'll make a truckload in about 3 years. We'll get it out of here. So.
Yeah, exactly right. No, we live out in the country, as you know, so some of that just stuff is a fire starter at the end of the day.
There you go.
But hey, it's the reuse part of the recycle.
It counts.
Right?
It counts.
It's really good. We heat off of a wood stove during the winter, so a lot of those Amazon boxes go to helping start the fire in the winter.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So put you on the spot with one more question here. I want to be cognizant of your time. Share some of your, one of your coolest experiences or memories from the recycling industry, if you could, right? Since you've been in it for 8 years now.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's just the education part of it, right? I've got this customer, and I use this example all the time. So if you've seen one of my talks, then I'm sorry, you're going to hear it again. But, I've got this customer that had a roll-off, and they're a big industrial manufacturer, Fortune 500, listed company. They're huge. And I went to a news site, and they were throwing all of their coppers together in this roll-off. The roll-off had the wrong spelling of the word metal on it. So it wasn't really there wasn't a lot of attention paid to this recycling program. So it had number one, number two, all their wire in it. The wire that wasn't getting thrown away in the trash some of it was going into this box, and the radiators, and that roll-off had probably 8 inches of water, in the bottom of it, right? Which, you just start as a scrap or recycled materials guy, you kind of just start shaking a little bit, like, oh man, this is not good. And we went through this process because the customer's there to build whatever their product is, right? Like they are there to make the product, and that's it. Well, at the same time, they're making other products, which is all the recyclables that leave the facility. And how do you help them optimize it without, affecting obviously their priority number one? So it was this process of just education. It was this process of building that sustainability story with the business case, and helping educate all the people on all the shifts, which is something we do a lot at Shapiro is we really try and do customer education. In fact, I did it once, over 3 shifts in a different language through a translator, which was pretty exciting. But we went in, we educated this customer and helped them separate their coppers into different bins, and we labeled them, and they ended up making about $80,000 extra a year just by, they're throwing it all in one place anyway. So you set up a couple of different places and they just throw it here versus there. They made $80,000 a year just on that little separation program. It was something that made it up into the boardroom. The The bigwigs were all very happy about it. The guy we were working with, we made him a hero,
Nice.
which was important. And even the guys like who led the program on the ground got little bonuses, because the company was happy that they were doing the right thing with all this copper. So it was, I think anytime you can help somebody do better, both from a sustainability standpoint and show them that there's money in this business if you do it right. If you're a manufacturer or anybody who needs to recycle for whatever they're doing, if you do it right, like it makes more sense to do it right. You just have to make it easy. And so anytime you can connect those two things and everybody's happy, that's the stuff that I absolutely love doing.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. That's what the industry is all about. So, Tim, thank you so much for your time. Always a joy to talk to you. If you guys want to get a hold of Tim, look him up on LinkedIn. He's all over the place there. Look him up with Circular by Shapiro. So thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure. Anytime, man.